Okay, well, hi everyone. My name is Just Ventura. I work for Car Systems. I'm a consultant. And today we're talking about abusing WebViews to steal all the files. And we're going to just jump straight into it with the story on how all this began. So about a year ago, I was working for a client. I was working on a web application. Specifically, I was working on their customer support portal, and it had this functionality where they could send emails and they get emails back and they get rendered inside of a web page. And so I started to think, well, what are potential attacks I can do here? And the first one that I'm thinking about is, let me try to do some kind of cross-site scripting attack. So I put together a payload and it looks something like this. It's just an HTML email and it says, hi, what do you call a moose wearing a mask? Does anyone know? Good. There'll be an answer soon. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be here for the next 14 minutes. I hope you like my jokes. And then the core of this, of this payload is the script tag. So it's just JavaScript in an email. And well, what I'd expect is nothing to happen, right? So any good email client just won't do anything with a script tag. It'll just pretty much ignore it. That's the standard. And that's exactly what happened. Nothing at all. But fast forward about 2 hours later, and I'm at lunch, and I have tons of emails in my email client. At the time, I was using an AI email client, and I know there's points for that, but we're going to take it apart. We're going to destroy it. So we're going to destroy the email client, so I hope there's points for that. So I'm going through my email client, and really, at the time, I really liked it. But then I'm scrolling through my emails, and I see this. So the answer is anonymous. I hope y'all love it. If not, throw a ball at me. I want an extra one. And so this is a pop-up inside of my email client, and that's not good because for one, that looks really native. So it'd be great for a phishing attack. But what's more interesting here is that I sent an email that contained JavaScript, and with that JavaScript, it got executed inside of an app, specifically like an email app. So I started thinking, well, how's that possible? One, like I would expect an email client not to do that, but two, can I do something cooler? Could I do something where I do like a 90s style attack and just like send an email and get all the files back? That would be ideal. And maybe we do that. So I'm going to jump straight into it and talk about the WebView that is being used. So on Android, a WebView just renders HTML content, JavaScript. It just displays the web. It's essentially a browser inside of an app. But EdisonMail was using a heavily modified one that didn't follow the typical conventions. And we're going to talk about 3 specific things that they did that resulted in, well, getting all the files. What else? So the first part we're talking about are JavaScript interfaces. JavaScript interfaces, what they do is they create a bridge between Android code and the JavaScript side. So they add a new element into JavaScript that allows JavaScript functionality to execute Android code. In the context of this one app, it allowed for the execution of toasts, and on Android, those are the little pop-ups you see, which is pretty cool. So just add another layer to like a realistic phishing attack. You know, you send an email that says your phone has some malware, and then a pop-up shows up that says your phone actually has malware. Like, that'd be really cool, really realistic. But apart from that, the other part of this is the file access. Local file inclusion is a feature that by default is disabled on WebViews, but in this case it was enabled because, like I said, this was a heavily modified WebView. And what local file inclusion lets us do, and we'll talk a bit more about it on the upcoming slide, is that it lets us use something called the file URI scheme, which is just down there. Again, we'll talk about it a bit, to access files on the device locally, which typically isn't allowed. And the final piece to all this attack is the external storage piece and the permissions involved. So on Android, the permissions are scoped at the application layer. And well, since the WebView is part of the application, it acquires the exact same permissions. And this being a smart email client, it had tons of permissions with external storage being one of them. So I said we talk a bit about local file inclusion, and well, this is it. Local file inclusion is the ability to load files via JavaScript. Specifically, we can do something like this, where we send a GET request to a particular path, in this case file://SD card, and we get some information back. What's really notable here is that if we try to read a directory, we get a directory listing, and if we try to read a file, we get the contents of the file, which makes it possible to enumerate entire directories like the external storage, which is on Android is standard to be at /SD card, and just go through and pull all the files. So let's put all the stuff I've been talking about together, and let's talk about how this attack is possible. If I, as an attacker, send an email out to a user, my email gets loaded into a web view. And while it's loaded into this web view, the user just sees the HTML portion, but in the background, I could include some kind of JavaScript payload. And my JavaScript payload can leverage local file inclusion to read all the files on a user's device. I'd probably want everything on their external storage, so that's what we'll do for the demo. And then I can upload those over the internet to my malicious server and do just that. So we have a demo. I have a backup, but I'm going to try it live. So let's see how this goes.
Plus 5 points for the live demo.
If it works, right?
Well, yeah, -5 if it doesn't.
Okay, got it.
Plus 10 for having a backup. That's true.
All right. So this is a website. It's called Putzmail. It's just a really easy way to send HTML emails. So I'm sending an email to myself. My email is liren10@gmail. It's not real backwards. So if you need to send some spam, go for it. Subject line, Shmoocon demo, and then we have the payload here. You'll see the email when it comes through. We have a script tag that just adds jQuery, and then we have some logic to do a file traversal starting at whatever directory I specify, and we're going to start at the SD card level. So as long as I'm not a robot, everything should hopefully work out. Good. Huh? If I'm a robot, well, I don't know what to say. I don't have any jokes there.
-5 for lots of jokes.
Oh, I can come up with one, don't worry.
Oh, no.
All right, so I'm going to run an ADB command. This isn't to show that I have to be local. This is just so I can stream the footage from my Android device. So that'll come up here shortly. So this is from a previous run.
-5 for inability to read small font.
Oh, you don't need to read that.
Yes, I
At
do.
what age is that happening? Because I'm still going to read this.
Yeah.
There we go. So here's my screen for my Android device. I'm going to open up my email client. I'm going to have a new email. And then on the other side, that's my server, and it's waiting for files to be dropped on it. So it opened up. I have a new email. I open it. And, I mean, it could be. That would be a great joke, actually.
It would have been 5 plus 5 for a Rickroll.
And then on the other side, we have all the files that are on my device. Thank you. Thank you. So what just happened there is I sent an email. I got all the files. My 90s hacker dreams have finally been completed. Thank you all. But that's not it yet. I'm not done yet, I promise. All right, so that's just one app. Like, why does that matter? Well, it's because it's not just one app. This style of attack extends further than just one. So the other half of this talk is about ironSource. It's an advertising SDK with about 1.5 billion monthly users, 19,000 installs across tons of apps. And what it is, and what makes it special is that it has these things called interactive ads. And if you've had an ad that's like, how many words can you make with these 4 letters, it's probably ironSource that supplied that or something. So here's just a quick example of like what their ads look like. You click on, it's interactive, it's HTML5, JavaScripty, and it just loads inside of a custom web view. So I started to think, well, could my attack apply here? And I started to reverse engineer and go through their web view, and I found out it was heavily modified, more so than the Edison Mail web view that I had previously been looking at. So if we look here, advertisers do sketchy things. This is proof of that. So this advertiser had built-in functionality that allowed files to be deleted, folders to be deleted, files to be saved, and the ability to track users, all without it being described in either the privacy policy or in any documentation that I could get my hands on. But if it makes you feel any better, all the advertisements that I looked at, they didn't use this. So even though the SDK allows it, +1 for the advertisers for not being shady and actually using this functionality. Yeah, it's cool. Most of this is gone now, so that's good. But the crux of this, if we keep on going forward, the crux of this, where the advertiser can pull all the files down, it comes from the local file inclusion. They also use this local file inclusion to make it really simple for them to load ads dynamically into a web view, which they cache somewhere on the device. And this is actually kind of common when we're talking about heavily customized web views, because they're doing like non-standard things, and local file inclusion just makes it easier to do non-standard things. The final piece here are the permissions. As an SDK, IronSource doesn't really need any permissions. It needs internet connectivity, and that's about it. But if your device, if your app uses the geolocation permission or the external storage permission, the SDK is not above using them. It will straight up use them and say, cool, you want a user's location? Here you go. Like, the app already has the permission. Let me not prompt the user and ask for it. Same thing goes for the external storage. So let's put this one together as well. Well, an advertiser can send a malicious ad to an application. That ad gets loaded into a web view, and it gets rendered to the user. The novelty of the ad being shown to the user is that the user is a captive audience, and they're held there for about 5 to 10 seconds, something like that, depending on the ad, right? In that meantime, the application can load malicious JavaScript, load a file, do local file inclusion similar to how we just did, and upload your entire external storage if they wanted to, and just push it up to a server like we did. That's one potential way. The other stuff that they could do, you saw that they could delete files off your device. You saw that they could do, that they could track you if they really wanted to. The final piece here, and I just want to talk about what my thoughts, my mitigations. Yep. My thoughts, my mitigations on how and why you really shouldn't use the local file inclusion setting. So first things first, advertisers do shady things. Really, it's the SDK that lets them do shady things. So someone should check them. I'm working on looking at some of the advertising SDKs, and they all do kind of some shady things. Maybe you'll hear more about it. The other piece of this are WebViews are meant to load pieces of the web. If you need to load local content, there are ways to do it from the Android side that, albeit, are more complicated and take a bit more effort than just enabling local file inclusion, but they're there. Use them. They increase security immensely. One example is using load URL and loading your files that way. Finally, don't use local file inclusion. It seems to be the crux for allowing these kinds of attacks. If you do use local file inclusion, don't connect your web view to the web, and definitely don't allow some kind of remote information to be loaded, because that's just asking for someone to load something to pull everyone else's files down. Questions? Comments? I put that thinking that was my Twitter. I guess it's not my Twitter. Go for it. Go for it.
You got a question?
What animal did you sacrifice to get the demo to work?
To get what?
The demo.
Get the demo to work.
I sacrificed exactly one Austin. He's my coworker. He has a talk at 3:30, I think 3:30 tomorrow, on the Build It track, talking about Banjo, which is an Android tool he built, which is a tool to reverse engineer Android applications on Binary Ninja or something. He'll correct me if I'm wrong. Oh no!
Minus
I
5
wish.
points.
I really want
Minus
those
5
powers.
points.
Austin's a really smart guy. He's awesome, by the way.
Does this mean that the people need to find a replacement for Austin tomorrow at 3?
No, he'll just butt again. It's cool. He'll come back. Yeah. Cool.
Can you retrieve Austin from the Tron universe?
Maybe. I'll need to try that. So huh? Oh, repeat the question? Can you ask the question again?
No.
You. Oh, me. Got it. Brain, man, it's late. What can I say? I'm getting old. Did SML actually patch this issue? Yes, they did. I went through a 90-day disclosure thing with them. They fixed the issue. This is actually sort of also on iOS as well, like it executed, but you didn't have the local file thing on iOS. And yeah, they fixed it. I was really tempted to send a real payload to their chief engineering Android thing, but I figured that would get me in a lot of trouble.
+5 for a good question.
Any more? Or are you done?
Nope. I think that's all the time we have.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, I really enjoyed your talk, even though you explicitly mentioned AI, and I couldn't actually tell if there was like a real purpose for you tanking 20 points off of your score for that. So maybe next time, listen to the judges. We're totally serious about our dislike. But you know what? +50 for live demo ponage. That was beautiful.
Glad you enjoyed it.
I felt the warmth of hell as the demons that you sacrificed to get that to work, and it warmed me up here, so thank you. +10 for listing mitigations. I was thinking you were going to run out of time and not talk about it, and I was ready to deduct some points, but you did list them. One suggestion would be, those were mitigations for the devs and the SDK makers, right? I mean, that was...
Well, both. Like, that's...
Right. My point there is that victims, though, would have no mitigations, right? So when I think mitigations, I think, like, how do I protect myself? How do we protect, people from this attack? Whereas you did the right thing there. There's no point deduction. It's just kind of like a suggestion of, if there were a way, or if you had figured out a way to disable some of this functionality, and of course probably render your phone completely useless, right, in doing so. But that's
Gmail.
That's the love of mitigations. It's like, yeah, I've mitigated it. I turned it off and threw it into the sea, And then +10 for the stuff being fixed. So thank you for that.
So I'm curious, how often or how many times did you practice this?
Let's see, a good number of times. Yeah, I gave it a go, and Austin
I can
helped a
tell.
lot. Yeah.
I see a lot of presentations, especially young people who are doing their first presentations or some of their early presentations. You have a very good presentation style. I can tell that you've practiced it. You're comfortable with the information. Plus 100 points for that.
Thank you.
That made it engaging and interesting to listen to. All right. The fact that you did a live demo, I usually tell people when I instruct my interns or whatever when they're in their talks, don't do a demo.
Yeah.
Your talk, I think, needed it to really visualize what was going on. And I'm very glad that it worked, because your talk would have greatly suffered if it didn't work.
Yeah.
But I also think your talk needed the demo.
Yeah, I did.
Like, you had to have it, all right? And you got +1 point for promoting your coworker's talk tomorrow.
Good. Thank you. Go watch it. It'll be good. It'll be really good. I've listened to it a couple of times. It's good.
Yeah, so I will echo the preparation. You sounded fantastic. I'm a little spoiled sport. I read the blog. So
Good. I'm glad.
no, so you
No, that's
no,
what
no,
it's there
but
for.
it's been out for a while, but actually the presentation is fantastic, and I'm really excited to see what you do next, because I feel that if you're actually going to submit to a main track, but to a big thing, to do some of your fresh research, fresh out of the gate, you're going to be amazing. So I 100% loved the moose joke. Sorry, I'm a sucker for, I call them skipper jokes from Disney, but dad jokes, love them. So, no, you did a fantastic job, and yeah, bravo for the live demo.
Thank you.
And bravo.
Thank you.
Oh, did you have a backup video?
Yeah, I had both.
Yeah,
backup demo wasn't
that's
as
like
nice.
plus 90, because hardly anybody does that. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mind if I ask you, and this isn't related, where do you work or go to school?
What?
Where do you work or go to school?
So I work for Carve Systems.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all. Thanks. Just curious.
Thank you.
And what's your social security number?
734.
I think he graduated in 2018, and he has a very nice picture on his GitHub.
Do I really?
You do.
Oh, great.
But you really should do your Twitter
Thanks,
thing.
Justin.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, man.